And as soon as you see Germany, you think of Nazis?
So here we are. We are just 6 weeks from our trip, maybe? Something like that, more or less. 6, 7 weeks? Not even 6 weeks, I think. So, yes, 6 weeks from today we'll be somewhere, hopefully all together. I know some of us couldn't make it tonight, so we're recording the talk tonight so that we can share it with our group. And we have some people that are visiting that are not on our trip, but just came because they heard Rachel last night and wanted to hear some more. So we're glad that you're here also. I think we do, don't we? Yes, there we are.
Oh, you are.
Before I introduce Rachel, any questions, anything going on with your arrangements for the trip that you need to bring up? Has everybody communicated with Arza Da'at? Do you have your flight arrangements? So Noah from the office, who's my new assistant, is going to be sending out, if he hasn't already, an email asking you just to send back to us your flight arrangements. If you're on the group flight, you can just write in group flight. But you might be on the group flight but returning in some different way that I don't know about. So if you've made any changes from the group flight at all, please just send us your information so that I have a list and I have a sense of who's getting in where. And if you're staying someplace else before you get to the first hotel, if you can indicate that as well, that would be terrific. I was in touch with Mike Hollander, our guide, over the last couple of days over email. We continue to look at things that we might add. There's a new Jewish museum that's opening up. Tobin pointed us to it. It's not open yet, but it might be by the time we get there. It's right across in Krakow, right across the street from from where we're going to be. So we might be able to slip that in, at least as an optional activity, if not scheduled. We continue to stay abreast of the security situation to make sure that everything that we do will be safe. And we're working on making sure we can bring the Torah with us. Still a little bit of a hurdle, but we're going to work on it. It's my goal to do it. Any questions about anything?
Some of us are going to arrive early, several days, and it seems like that.
Sorry.
Mic works.
Yeah.
Who's being met at the airport when they arrive and going directly to your first place. That we were talking about how we would connect, those of us that got there early, with the bus or whatever it is that's going to be picking up the people at the airport.
Right. I will speak with Mike as we get a little bit closer, and we'll figure out exactly. We've done this on many trips. We'll figure out exactly where we're going to be. Again, I haven't done this as a tour before. If this was Israel, I could tell you exactly what was going to happen, but I am only this far ahead of all of you on this. But we'll figure out exactly, and we'll probably either give you a location. Most likely we'll give you a location to meet us at by a certain time. When we do Israel, we tend not to tour right away when we land. We like to get to the hotel. People like to get sort of squared away, and then maybe we go for a walk. But I'm not sure we'll do the same thing here or not. Okay.
So the question is if there are a whole group that are staying in the hotel a day or two ahead.
What I think we would try to do is have the bus swing by the hotel, bring you to the airport, and then we'd all be together. Because we do cover some information, sort of when we land on the bus, hopefully stuff that we can just repeat, but it's nice if we're all together. So that might be the plan that we do. It would make more sense. Okay, so without any further, and we have time to talk afterwards as well. I've shared with you, some of you were here last night, many of you were. Rachel Korazim is really a treasure in the circles of Jewish education, and particularly in the nexus between Israeli culture and Holocaust studies. But beyond that, her personal connection to Budapest and to Hungary, see, I did it? And to Hungary is really precious. And I actually was hoping that Rachel could join us on our trip as well, but our trip is scheduled during the one time of the year that she can't be there because she's doing all these other things. It's Hartman, right. All these other obligations in Israel. She's highly sought after. I will just share with you that in addition to last night, which was widely attended and a phenomenal presentation, which is also will be on our website tomorrow on the YouTube page, Rachel spoke at King David High School this afternoon with the grade 11 students there, 30 of them, and it was a terrific presentation as she took them through how to take just a tiny little document, a little scrap of information about one woman who had survived the Shoah, and trace and teach and find the whole story of who this woman was long before. and their family, and then to trace it all the way through her experience when her daughter had none of that. And Rachel will be speaking tomorrow with the leaders of Jewish Federation, because they were just on a mission to Israel, and Rachel was on their schedule, and she was so phenomenal that Ezra said, we have to have her back here in Vancouver. And when he heard I was bringing her, he piggybacked. So, Rachel, glad that you're here. Thank you.
So how long do we have? That's very... Oh, good. Okay. It's an hour and a half. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself as connected to this topic, because unlike my presentation last night, by the way, how many of you have been here last night? Okay, about half. So that's my professional life. This is what I do. I research, I prepare, I do the presentation. It doesn't work, I'll fix it, This is what I do for a living. This story comes from a totally different end of who I am, okay? And therefore I'd like to show you how am I connected to Hungary and to Budapest, because I was not born there. Neither do I live there. I'm an Israeli. I was born in Israel and I live in Israel. So my connection is slightly different. I could present it in different ways, but I'm going to tell you two stories and how they connect me to Hungary in a way that may be conflicting, but for me it's complementary and not conflicting. So both my parents are Holocaust survivors from Budapest. They survived the war in different ways. This is not the lecture about my my parents' Holocaust experience, which we can do some other time. They meet each other immediately after, get married, because this is my biological father. He's not the man who raised me, but that again is another story. And so because my biological father was a very active member of the Zionist underground in the Budapest ghetto, and the Zionist underground in the Budapest ghetto did not for a minute consider uprising. All they wanted to do was save children. Sneak children out, lie about children, cheat about children, and get them out of the ghetto. This is all they have done. But my father was an active member of the Zionist underground, and therefore immediately after the Holocaust, Aliyah, emigration to Israel, now. This is still the year 1946, so they come as clandestine immigrants because the Brits are ruling the country and they are not freely allowing Holocaust survivors to come into the country. Their boat, the Max Nordau, gets caught, like 2/3 of those boats were caught, and they are put in a camp that the Brits had for these illegal immigrants. Because of mom's pregnancy, I actually was in the camp, although I do not remember it very clearly. They have been in the Atlit illegal immigrant camp, not in Cyprus. Pardon? Atlit is in Israel. It's not a camp now, it's a museum. Okay. And so they are there for 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, because mom's pregnancy, they get released and sent to a kibbutz. Kvutzat Geva, the kibbutz where they were sent to, where I am born, was already celebrating its 25th anniversary. So that will tell you very clearly that these people had not waited for Hitler to become Zionist. They're Zionists way before. They are all from Lithuania, and therefore we affectionately call them Litva. Hungarians, let me tell you, within the Jewish world, not the perfect match, not true. They could have been nicer. But they are out and out verbrannte socialists. And my mother comes from actually an Orthodox background in the heart of Budapest ghetto. And by that, I do not mean the Nazi-made ghetto. I mean that neighborhood that had been Jewish from way before the Nazis ever thought of putting Jews into ghetto. The expectation in the kibbutz from these, not pioneers like them, refugees actually, right? Survivors, right? Is to leave everything behind, to embrace the new culture, the new language, to out Israeli every Israeli, or at least to be at least as good as Israeli as they can. And for the baby, when it will be born, of course she will be raised in nothing but Hebrew. Well, My grandma was still with them. Grandma survived the Gunskirchen camp, less famous than some of the others, pretty awful in its way. And there was no expectation that she would be able to learn Hebrew. And my mother would not have it that her mother would not be able to speak to her daughter. So therefore, in Kibbutz Kvutzat Geva of 1946, 47, 48, they taught me Hungarian. If you knew even a little bit about Israel, that is as sacrilegious as you can imagine. Like, who would teach a newborn Sabra that language of Galut, of the exile, of the Holocaust, of the horror of the Arrow Cross? No! But I am the daughter of my mother, and she is the one who had thought that it's not inappropriate for her daughter not to be able to speak to her mother. Furthermore, coming from where we come, my grandmother, may she rest in peace, they are all gone by now. My grandmother, Olga, of blessed memory, she would come into the babies and later the children homes. You know that in those years, children in kibbutzim were raised separately from their parents. And she would recite Modeh Ani every morning with me and Shema every night. And for many years of my childhood, I thought that that too had been Hungarian, because the way she had pronounced it, Hebrew, it did not sound. And to this day, if I would want to say Modeh Ani, there is no way I can pronounce it and remember all the words in the modern Hebrew that I speak. I can only do Modeh Ani lefonecho, etc., like she did, because that was the thing. And other subversive activities. So this is chapter 1 of the story. As I'm growing up in Israel, Hungarian is kept like an intimate family language. Grandma dies when I'm 8, at the extreme old age of 56. I'm going to be 70. I don't think of myself as extremely old. But this is how I remember her. And then Mom remarries, and she marries Ephraim, who is also a survivor, who thinks that the Hungarians were worse than the Nazis, and therefore we are not to speak Hungarian at home. And Ilana, my sister, is born, and she is not taught Hungarian, because she is his daughter, and we respect his wishes. So Hungarian remains the intimate language between my mother and myself, not to be spoken in front of Ephraim, who is the only father I knew. And no one should aspire for any better. And we do not speak out of respect, we do not speak it in his presence. Neither do we speak it in Ilana's presence, my little sister, because she doesn't understand. And so the Hungarian remains very limited, like cooking, etc. And then when I will get married and the kids, so did they have temperature or not? And like the basic home language. As I grow up and I have to apply to universities and jobs and what have you, you have to fill in those lines about your knowledge of languages. And in Hebrew at the time, in Israel, it used to go like Hebrew, English, French, other. Nowadays it's very different. It includes Arabic, it includes Russian, and different stuff. But at the time when I'm growing up, it's Hebrew, English, French, other. And then you have to put the little stars, like how well you know it, okay? So I put Hebrew, I have it well. English, you can judge for yourself, and let me tell you, just trust me on it, I have French as well. And I remember myself time and again sitting in front of that form. Do I confess? It's really confess my sins that I can speak Hungarian. As soon as you put it, that qualifies you among those Holocaust people. And I'm a Sabra. Do I really want to schlep that on my shoulders? And sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't. When I applied for the Jewish Agency, that organization that had brought me out here to Canada in the 80s, I must have put it down, because when I went back to Israel, I went to work for the Jewish Agency in Yerushalayim. And one day, the year is 1990, middle of the year, I get a phone call from, now it's Human Resources, it used to be called something else, less fancy a name, personnel or something. And they say, Rachel, your forms say that you can speak Hungarian. Yes, what have I done? we just, the communist regime fell. Yeah, I read the papers, I know that. Okay, and there is this group in Budapest who is trying to start a Jewish day school. We would love for you to go out there and see how we can be instrumental in that. Wow. Because Grandma and my mother, back there in the day, against the kibbutz and the Israeli ideology, had taught me Hungarian. I now get to be sent to help rebuild the schools that my mother was not fortunate enough to graduate from because of the Holocaust. This is not something to say on the phone to my mother, and on top of that, it's 90. We do not have cell phones yet. So I just get into the car in Jerusalem and I drive all the way to Haifa. And in my mind on the way, Mom will get emotional. She will be crying. It'll be awkward. But you know from yesterday that I know how to handle tears by now. So, okay. I get there, knock on the door. She opens. I'm there in the middle of the week, unannounced. What happened? There are lots of people, I belong among them, for whom news can never be good. News, by definition, ought to be. If perchance, maybe, occasionally, they're good, well, thank God. But otherwise, nothing happened, Mom. The kids are fine. Yossi had not left me. Calm down. So I sit and I start telling her this amazing thing, and my mother does not get weepy. She gets angry. And so finally I'm in her face. And I can see it. I know how to read my mom's face. So I said, Mom, what's wrong? I was hoping she'd be happy and emotional. And she looks at me. If the Hungarian Jews have not figured out by now that there is nothing for them there, why should it be Dafka, my daughter, who helps them entrench themselves even better in that accursed land? I'm in between the two. I'm the person who got the love of the Hungarian language from my mother and Grandma. I'm the person who was taught that I shouldn't do what I love doing most, go and work with Jewish educational frameworks outside of Israel, by my same person, mother. Do I come across to you? Oh, I'm so sorry that Rabbi left because I really didn't want to say it behind his back. But do I come across to you like a person that would go consult with a rabbi on her everyday life? No. Okay. So this could not be intentional because I wouldn't plan it. The very same week, we have a lecture at the place where I am working, the Jewish agency, and they have invited a speaker, Orthodox, long-bearded Rabbi Rav Amital from the Gush. It's a settlement, huge kippah, but within the Orthodox party in Israel, left-wing. They don't exist anymore, but at the time they did. Okay? There must be a few, I'm kidding, but still. And Rabbi Amital delivers his... and Holocaust survivor from Hungary. My mother's generation. So Rabbi Amital finishes his presentation. For the life of me, I cannot remember what the presentation was about because I'm anxious to ask him the question. It couldn't be, unintentional that he would come that day. So I wait until everybody finishes. Can I ask a personal question? Of course, he says. So we go into the room. A door is left open, Orthodox rabbi, woman, so that. And I'm awkward and said, it's the first time in my life. I said, calm down. There are worse things than having a conversation with a rabbi. Just calm down. You'll be okay. So, thank you. So I ask him. I'm telling them the story, and I ask him. The man had beautiful blue eyes, penetrating, and he closes his eyes for a period of time that must have been a minute, but I thought it was eternity. Then he opens his eyes, and he says, At tilchi leBudapest. You will go to Budapest. I wait. I just don't know what to do. The whole thing is weird to me. And it says, because Jewish kids deserve Jewish education. And Mom, I say, she'll come around. At the end of the lecture, if we have time, I will tell you when and how she came around. It took many, many years. Okay? But she did, and he was still alive. And I called him to tell him that he was right. Both of them are gone by now. So this is my knowledge about Hungary. That I went, and I continue going. And I work with living Jews in Hungary. I respect the past. I know about the Holocaust. I teach about the Kastner trial. It's my business to know. But I go to Budapest not as an act of commemoration. I go to see what is left to be seen from hundreds of years of Jewish life back there. I go to see the Jews who live there today and an unbelievable culture, fun city that Budapest is, right? Okay. And I really am asking you to pull on your energies and try to go on a similar trip. It's not a Holocaust trip going to Eastern Europe. It's something way more complex, way more nuanced. Don't in your mind do Remembrance Day all the way on your trip. You are reaching out to where we are, most of us, coming from. That inheritance of over 1,000 years of Jewish life and culture in that part of the world. Okay? That is the deal? Is the good deal? Let's go. Let's go. So this is about the Jews of Hungary. I'm not big expert on Hungary in general. So here and there what I know I will share. So a little bit of history, not too much. It's since the 13th century that we have Bela. You have to pronounce these names in the Hungarian accent. No, there is no test on that. Just pay attention that oftentimes a name that will sound to you like a female name will be a male name in Hungarian. So this is the case. You would say Bella in Italian. Don't say Bella. It's not Bella. It's Bela. And it's a male name, and my father, my biological father, was called that. So it's a name. So the King Bela of the 13th century already gives a charter of privileges to the Jews, and so they are invited to come. But I would like to make a note, because I will be addressing in a few words the older history of Jews in Hungary. So it needs to be said that unlike an almost uninterrupted history of Jews in the Czech Republic, Hungarian Jews of today do not trace their history back to this period, because their history is interrupted, while in the Czech Republic it's more continuous. So we need to look at the fact that Hungarian Jews will normally trace themselves back to the earliest 16th century. But even that is sketchy, and more like 17th, 18th. Okay, so we can talk of earlier presence of Jews there, but it's not what we're talking about. Okay, so for most people, Budapest is a fun town, and it is. This is the main square. It's called the Square of the Heroes, Hősök tere. It's beautiful, and it's like at the entrance of the equivalent of Budapest Central Park. And it's a beautiful place. One of the many markets of the city. I am a foodie, so that will always appear on my touristy programs. I love baths and all of this part of Europe. The Slovak Republic, the Czech Republic, the Hungary, etc. They are full of them. And in Slovak and Czech, they'll be referred to as Teplice, and in Hungarian, they have another name. So this is the fanciest of them all. It's the Széchenyi. This one on the right-hand side, it's sort of the water is circulating, and they've been around since the time of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. My friend from Los Angeles, whom I took for a couple of days to Budapest, called the whole place like a huge wedding cake, which is a nice way of referring to it. It's fun. It's really a fun place, and you are absolutely invited and allowed to use to do that. This is from the top of Budapest. Obviously, it's Buda and Pest, and in between the Danube, which is referred to in Hungarian not as the Danube nor the Danuba. We are learning Hungarian, Duna. The name of the river in Hungarian is Duna, not the Danube. Okay. And so this is one of the top of the mountain, like in Buddha, where you'll be looking down on the river and across to the other side of the city. And one of the zillion cafe places all over. This is Europe, on the sidewalks, outdoors if weather permitting, indoors. All of these cafes will have an indoors and an outdoors. They are not air conditioned, most of them, and if you happen to be there on a hot day, sit outside, okay? They'll have the fans and whatever, but most of them are not air conditioned. Air conditioning is very slow in coming into Budapest, but it's coming. Okay, so World Jewish Map will give us an entrance to where Hungary is at all. So this green thingy here is Hungary, and you can see that it's land-bound. So we'll let it come out of its place, and you know more or less the best-known Hungarian Jewish song. Vai csoda madár, micsoda madár, lába zöld a szárnya, kedvjók az már, mári madár vár, csak mindig vár. The Hasidic Kaliver Rebbe from eastern Hungary, it is said, went strolling in the fields one day, and he heard this little shepherd, non-Jewish boy, sing this beautiful Hungarian sing, and he told the little boy, "Sell me your tune," or as in Yiddish you will tell the story, or in Hebrew, your nigun. Sell me your nigun. And the little boy sold the nigun, and the Rebbe created a miracle, and the little boy totally forgot his nigun. And the Rebbe gave him new words about the longing for Zion. And if I let you hear the whole song, it's too long for what we want to do today. So you'll hear that the last stanza is in Hebrew, like in Ashkenazi's Hebrew, but in Hebrew. When Mashiach is coming, when are we going back to the land? Why do I put it in? I'm not from Hasidic origin, and the whole point is not all Hungarian or Eastern European Jews have been fiddlers on the... No, they have not. Okay? But because after the Holocaust, because of how popular this Hasidic song was in Hungary, it became the code communication between survivors wandering on the roads and finding their way either back or away from homeland. And you wanted to check if somebody was Hungarian, you would sing a few bars or you'd whistle a few bars, and then they would know. And you will find a mate, and you will find somebody who comes from your culture. So that particular song had become of a great importance, dafka to post-Holocaust, non-Hasidic Hungarians. And it's sort of the, I would say, the unofficial hymn of Hungarian Jews. So I wanted you at least to be exposed to the tone a little bit. Okay? A little bit of stereotypes, like who are those Hungarians that we are aware of? You will be invited to add, Annie. As soon as you recognize a person, Herzl, Theodor Herzl, born in Budapest. However, most of his Zionist work he had done in Vienna. People will tell you that he comes from an assimilated family. Not true. It's a neolog family. We'll talk about that. And Herzl had a bar mitzvah. I'll show you where it's. So, yeah. Okay, so you did one out of the, I think, 6 that I have. Who are these guys? Satmar Jews. You remember when we played that simulation in the lecture in Israel, and I said out and out ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Satmar, as extreme as they come in the Jewish world, their origin is from Hungary. The city Satmar, where they have come from, and now their center is in New York City. The city Satmar used to be Hungary. Now it's Romania. Needless to say, the city had not moved. Only national borders have moved, as they often did. If you want to talk about critical of Israel, you cannot find a group more critical of the state of Israel than these guys. Like, they will go all the way to Yasser Arafat, Ahmadinejad, and whatever comes to mind against the Zionist state. While at the same time they can live in Israel and enjoy public transportation, public health, and whatever. Vote and be elected to the Knesset. Do you recognize this lady? Well, you should. This is a picture of Hannah Senish. A young woman makes Aliyah prior to World War II to Israel, lives in a kibbutz, volunteers to be trained as a parachutist, to be dropped back behind Nazi enemy lines, tried to help our brethren, unfortunately caught by the Hungarians, tried and executed by her Hungarian compatriots back in Budapest in 1944, November, I think. Do you recognize this guy? Oh, it's funny, you need to be an Israeli for that. The name is Ephraim Kishon. He was used to call in Hungarian Kishont Ferenc. In Hungarian, always last name first, first name last. So Kishont is the last name. He was a well-published author well before the Holocaust already in Hungary. Makes Aliyah after, never a Zionist, nor a very observant Jew either. But after the Holocaust, he makes Aliyah to Israel and becomes the most published Israeli author outside of Israel in a zillion languages of humoresques, and it's only in America and Canada that they don't know him, but all over Europe, in all the languages, they admire this Central European sense of humor, and it's normally customary on Yom HaAtzmaut to screen on television some of those older films from the 60s and the 70s that were made based on his stories. Salah Shabati being one that, you know, charismatic Moroccan character that makes Aliyah to Israel, etc., actually was created by Ephraim Kishon. Ephraim Kishon. Kishon. K-I-S-H-O-N. Okay, do you recognize the new guy now? Elie Wiesel. Where does he come from? Siget. Still in Romania nowadays, no more in Hungary, and Hungary at the time, as close to Satmar as you can be, just about 60 kilometers, also Hasidic. And he comes from a Hasidic family, but not Satmar, because if goes allow you to divide, why not divide? So in the same part of the country, you can be either Satmar or anything else. And this one? Nobody knows, unless you are a scientist or a mathematician. This is Paul, or in Hungarian, Pali Erdős, one of the ever great mathematicians, and mathematicians who publish articles can give themselves numbers. You will be an Erdős 1 if you ever published anything together with him. You will be an Erdős 2 if you ever published anything with somebody who ever published something with Erdős, etc., etc. Until, I don't know, Erdős 7. He is a great, great mathematician, died a few years ago, and was a very close friend of my father-in-law. And if I wanted to brag, I can show you pictures of my husband who is Erdős. And he actually spoke Hebrew as well. He lived in America. Okay, a little bit of history again. So you can see in Budapest, actually in Buda, in one of the oldest synagogues that now serves as a museum, tombstones from the 3rd century of the Common Era. And it's funny to note, like, what did Jews do in that part of the world in the 3rd century? So at that time, Hungary is still a province of the Roman Empire. And its names are crucial in Hungary, and you will come across a restaurant or a hotel or something called Pannonia. Pannonia is the Roman name of that province. So anything called Pannonia calls back to pre-Hungarian history of Hungary, because the Hungarian Asian tribes come only in the 10th century. Anything before that is other European. And this is from the Roman period. So Jews who live within the Roman Empire, not all of them having waited for the exile to go to live in other countries of the Roman Empire. Some left Palestine out of their own volition because it was great to do business in the Roman Empire. And they follow the Roman troops to wherever they go with business. They are providers of whatever armies need. Let us not go into the details. They provide everything. Now, when you do that, you die sometimes, and you need to be buried. So there were not living Jewish communities in that part of the world, but when people died, their colleagues would bury them. So we will find your tombstones, and one of them, ladies, you'll be happy to know, is of a woman, businesswoman, who actually, in the 3rd century. We were not always in the kitchen. Already in the 3rd century, in case you needed proof. I'm showing you another sort of ancient remnant, already 14th century, Middle Ages. This is from the town of Sopron, Western Hungary, closer to Vienna than it is to Budapest. So it's really Western Hungary. And they found in the 60s, during the communist era, family synagogues built within the enclaves of the family yard and home to be protected. Later on, 18th, 19th century, the Sopron synagogue is in the town square, like City Hall, Catholic Church, Protestant Church, the Jewish synagogue. Jews were well viewed in Sopron in Western Hungary for many, many a year. And then comes the Holocaust. We'll come to relate to that. So we have history in Hungary. Now I'm jumping to more recent history that is connected to the Jews of today. Of course you may. Expelled. Two or three sources. One of them, Bohemia. They will come from the northern and the western parts of the Czech Republic. It's the whole shift from Germany through the Czech Republic, and they move on. Jews move with the rivers. Jews move with business. And also, Hungary will be one of the few places that will allow them to own land and to work the land. So that was a big attraction, to be able to have business in agriculture. And therefore, urban Jewish centers are not that fast to develop in Hungary, neither big yeshivas, that's Slovakia, Bratislava, northern Hungary at the time, but in the rest of the country, it's the rich agriculture of the plain of Hungary that will attract them, and they will become wine merchants. So some come from that part, Germany, Bohemia, and others, the totally other kind, because Western Jews will be always a step advanced as per education, connection to the non-Jewish population, while in the East, from the East, the Ukraine, etc., it's Hasidic Jews that will come. And they will converge in Hungary and, of course, create crisis. But we'll come to that in a moment, because why not? So in 1848, the middle of the 19th century, you have already a pretty strong presence of Jews. And now we have to be careful. I'm going to say Budapest, and it will be wrong. Because it's not until the end of the 19th century that Buda, Pest, and Óbuda, the older part of Buda, unite to one city. So at that part, if I am talking about Hungary and its capital, I should say Pest. Okay? So Jews live under the Austrian Empire. Don't rush to correct me to say the Austro-Hungarian, because until that date, it's not yet the Austro-Hungarian. It's just the Austrian Empire that rules over huge parts of Europe and a large number of different ethnic groups. So Hungarians are called Magyars by themselves, and Slovaks, not so much Czechs, but more Slovaks, and Croats, and Serbs, and a German-speaking people within Hungary, and so on and so forth, and Austria rules over them. This is 1848, the awakening of nationalism in Europe. Garibaldi, the beginning of the unification of Germany into one nation from the different provinces, and the Hungarian says, us too. We want liberty, we want to revolt against the emperor, and we will go to war. And they call the revolution or the uprising for creating an independent Hungary. The gentleman who is most famous for that is the heroic figure of Kossuth Lajos, not a Jew, so now you know that Kossuth is the last name and Lajos Louis is the first name, and that's his lifespan. And he goes on the steps of the National Museum in Budapest and creates that famous speech, stand on your feet, rather on your souls, talpra magyar, stand on your feet, Hungarian man, actually, when they say for all men were created equal, they mean men, right? Okay, so stand on your feet, Hungarian man, and fight back. The Jews at that time in Hungary already, for the last 150, 200 years, converging from these different places, and thank you for the question, and by this time already starting to create that missing part of these countries' societies. Hungarians have noblemen and peasants. They do not have a middle class. Jews are middle class. Jews create business. Jews build industry. Jews can travel along the Danube and meet the other Jew in Vienna, in Bratislava, etc., and create business and bring it to the country. And therefore Jews live in Hungary by that time, live in Pest, already started building the town of Pest and making it a town, and many of them support the uprising. So Jews will support the uprising, will join Kossuth Lajos in two forms. One, real fighting, and you will see by the Dohány Templom, which you will call the Dohány Temple, for lack of exercise in Hungarian accent, but the name is Dohány. By the way, names of Hungarian synagogues mean nothing Jewishly. Don't even struggle to think that it's the Tiferet Israel in Hungarian. No. All they mean is the name of the street on which they are built. This is how they get their names. So don't really feel guilty that you don't understand the name. In this case, tobacco. So the Dohány, like the biggest synagogue in Europe, is actually the name is the Temple of the Tobacco. You know, like big name. Anyway, Jewishly. So in the court, you'll see that monument for the heroes who died to free the country, to make it independent. And of course, the other Jewish support. Always the other Jewish support? No. Money. They finance the revolt. The Hungarians lose it. They do not get independence. If you were a Hungarian, you will have to say, well, we didn't lose it to the Austrians. They couldn't beat us. They called in the troops of the Tsar from Russia to beat us. And we lost to the Russians. Big animosity to Russians to this very day in Hungary, going all the way back to history. Okay, so we lose it in Hungary, but there is a little bit of gain. The Austrians realize that the Hungarians are a strong power, and they needed the Russians to beat them, so I'll give them something. And they will create now what we call the dual monarchy. The Austro-Hungarian Empire. So if you look on the left-hand side, you will see Österreich something, and on the right-hand side, you will say Ungar this and this. So now the monarchy, the empire is dual. And it has two capitals, in Vienna and in Budapest. And it will have a parliament in Budapest as well. Okay? The question is, and what happens to the Jews? Well, the emperor is pretty angry, and therefore he will punish them. And he will make them pay a very heavy fine, but also postpone emancipation. Remember, this is the mid-19th century. All over Europe, Jews start being emancipated. It is said that the emperor was on the verge to give it to them. By the way, that conference that we related to in the morning in Paksh in 1844, prior to these events, already is considering what will happen if we get emancipation. Okay? But seeing how the Jews have revolted against him, he will punish them. No emancipation, thank you very much, and a heavy fine. You help the rebels with money, you'll pay up to me now. Times go by, and by the year 1867, 68, it's very easy for an Israeli to remember the dates because it's 48 and 67. And you know, as we count Israel's history by wars, so 48, 67 we remember by heart. The Kaiser, Franz Joseph, is now saying to the Jews, okay, time went by, I see that you are loyal citizens, la 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 la. So I'm ready to give you emancipation. I am ready to give you your full rights among other citizens. I just have a small question. You see, in my kingdom, I have Serbs and Croats and Slovaks and Czechs and Germans and Austrians and Hungarians and Gypsies even. At that time, it was okay to call them Gypsies. Nowadays, it's not. If you come across people discussing Gypsy issues in Hungary, and they are very prevalent issues, they are addressed as Roma. Not Rome like the city, but Roma. Okay? So I have all those, ethnic groups in my kingdom. I also have churches. The Catholic, the Protestant, the Greek Orthodox, the Pravoslav. What are you Jews? A church or a nation? And the Jews answer, this is the conference. What are we? A nation or a church? How many for nation? Show me a show of hands. Thank you. How much will say to the emperor that we are a church? And all the others do not know. The Kaiser is asking a question. Are you a church? Am I to treat your heads like I would treat the reverend this and the archbishop that and that? Or am I to treat you just like another nation in my kingdom? Rabbi, would you like to guess and decide, are we a nation or a religion or a church? You wish. Hungarian Jews says, what do you mean nation? We are Hungarians. We are Hungarians. How could you even ask the question of a different church? It's the winds from Germany. We are Hungarians of the Mosaic faith, just like in Germany. They totally see themselves as members of the country in which they live, totally patriotic. Does it resemble maybe a little bit your neighbors from across the border? American Jewry? Very much that. Americans, what do you mean? Then we'll discuss which church I go to. But for American, I don't know exactly how it works in Canada, because Canada is always slightly different. The Kaiser, thank you for your honest answer. Now let me tell you guys that in my country, in my parliament, every church is represented. Please choose one representative for you as a Jewish church to come to my parliament. No. What happens now when the Jews have to choose one rabbi to represent all of them? How successful will that be? It's not funny. It's actually heartbreaking. It's actually heartbreaking. And the conference convenes again a year later in 68, and they cannot decide. And this is the famous break in Hungarian Jewry. They split up to three parts. The Neologia, the new Torah, closest in our language to the conservative movement, and at the fall of the communist regime, when Jews are again allowed, as in a non-communist country, to be who they are, the Neolog group will join the conservative movement. Orthodox, with fractions within, regular Hasidic, this, that, but still all Orthodox. And then there is this heartbreaking group about which I always feel so much, is those Jews who sit through this conference and keep asking the permission to speak and will repeat the same thing. Why do we need to divide? Why can we not just be Jewish as we were before the question was asked? And they will end up becoming a third group, called in Latin status quo ante, the situation as it was before. They don't want to divide. Isn't it heartbreaking? Like, why do we need to have this argument? Used to be better before. We were just Jewish, and this is what we are to all of them anyway. Status quo ante will totally disappear in the Holocaust. Orthodox and Neolog you will see in Budapest today, and the Neolog is the majority. Okay, so let's get to know them. And I'm introducing to you the Neolog, main Neolog synagogue in the world. That's the Dohani, as you call it, the Dohani. That is Dohani. The Dohani resembles very much another large synagogue that is built around the same time. Anybody can think of anything? New Yorkers, Fifth Avenue, no, Lexington and 55. Central. This is what it looks like. They are built more or less at the same time. Central Synagogue of Manhattan and the Dohani, as you will say, the Dohani Temple. Okay? The Dohani from day one will want to be part of the world around them, namely for the synagogue to look... Slicha? And I'd like you to listen a little bit to the choir of the Dohani. Can we raise it? Then can you raise it a little bit?
This is a demonstration of flip format.
Got you. Okay, got it. Okay. So, I'm not doing the music now. I just want you to have the picture. And I like for us to think, how much does this choir style want to resemble the environment? The music of Central Europe, the music of the churches, the choirs of the churches, the dress of the choirs of the churches. You know, you want to belong. And thank God you can afford to. You don't need to pray in a little shtibale village anymore. You can build a decent synagogue. By the way, the Jews are so enchanted at the time that the Dohani is built that they can afford to pay for anything, that they get the best architect, the non-Jewish one. At the same time, the Central Cathedral of Budapest is built, and they hire a Jewish famous architect. So at the same time, the cathedral is built by a Jew, Dohani is built by a non-Jew. Go figure, you know, Jews in their world. While the Dohani is being built and being attractive to a growing number of Jews who want their Jewishness to be expressed in a way that is like the neighborhood, the next door, Orthodox, non-Neolog, they need to do something also to be attractive, and it's throughout Europe that Orthodoxy will start building nicer synagogues. This is the Korazim, doesn't mean beyond the name of a street. And I'd like you to listen to the style of music that we will be hearing at the Korazim. I hope it works without all that thing. Yeah, it's coming. You have to wait about 40 seconds. the Kozinci, the Orthodox. The development of cantorial music. Being the secular Israeli that I am, I was raised on this because my mother missed it so much living in Israel that once a week on Wednesday evening they would have cantorial music on the radio and we had to listen it. And thank God, as I was growing up and cantorial music developed in Israel, I could take my mom to the best concerts of that and to hear the best cantorial renditions in Israel and in America. These two trends develop in a parallel way. Okay? And by the way, could you totally say that that is uninfluenced by opera? No. This is Europe of the 19th century. We talk to each other. We listen to each other's music. And the Jews who did not go neither to the Neolog nor to the Orthodox, because there are always such Jews, where do they have their music? They have them in the opera. And you will find endless, not any, cannot open the specified file. Why can you not open? Dan, can you go back? Because to have these 1 minute even, of the kind of music that is not Jew, but will let you feel good as a Jew. It's not so Verdi. Yeah, make it big. I'm a European. European music is singing about the captives in Babylon, you know? Opera is as good as the synagogue. Translated to Hungarian. We will sing the Verdi choir about the Jewish captives in Babylon in Hungarian. What's wrong with that? And this presentation, I got it from Jews in Hungary today. This is us. This is fly away in Hungarian spirit all the way to Jerusalem. Still, or to uncover rather. Okay, let's go back to the presentation, and we were here at the opera. Right. Okay. So a little bit about the people involved, and I call this of merchants, writers, and scientists. So it's so easy and customary to say they were Neolog Jews, they were Orthodox Jews, as if a Jew is defined only by the kind of synagogue he may or may not go to. Okay? So I want you to see other aspects of life. Jews are really the people who built Budapest as a city in those years. And the main boulevard, the Andrássy and the King Street, every other building was built and developed by Jewish merchants and businessmen. It's not theirs anymore, but still. Here is the image of two Josephs. One of them is Kish Joseph, a writer and a journalist, Jewish. And the other is Korashi Joseph, and I want to tell you about this guy. He was born in 1844 to a small family, a very small businessman called Haidushka, which means a village clerk. And he moves very quickly to Budapest and studies on his own and takes just as many courses in the university as he can afford. And he will actually start the Bureau of Statistics in the Buda part of Budapest, in a street to this name carrying his name. Later on, he dwells in all sorts of demographic and other statistics researches in Hungary. One of them is about the spread of the Hungarian language in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This is how patriotic he was. He will even run for elections in the area from which his family came, and for the pamphlet that he publishes for the elections that he lost, he dresses up like a Hungarian nobleman. He can do that because by that time he is ennobled by the emperor for the great work of statistics that he does. And it is suggested by friends that maybe out of recognition he should drop that really very simple, low-level Jewish kind of name and adopt a more Hungarian patriotic name. It is also recommended that he may want, out of really gratefulness to the emperor, change his religion and become a decent Christian. He will accept the first one, and he will look around and choose the name of a small river, the Korash, in the countryside where he was born, and will call himself, instead of Haidushka, Korashi. To the religion thing, he cracked up laughing. He said, "Why should I, who does not believe in the God into whose religion I was born, change to another one and not believe in that other God? Like, what's the purpose of the exercise?" He will raise two sons, lose one daughter. He will let them choose, and one of his sons, and so he is the first one of his family moving up to the big city and ended up as a professor in the Budapest University of Statistics. The son that remains within the fold, Cornel, will become a physician. Namely, he was a medical doctor, but he was also a student of physics. Okay? And he does not really adopt Judaism, but he becomes a Zionist. And he will be the first head of the JNF in Hungary towards the beginning of the 20th century. He had 4 children, 2 daughters and 2 sons. One son will perish in the Holocaust. 2 daughters will end up in America, one in Canada and the other in the US. And the oldest son, Ferenc Korashi, professor of chemistry, will end up making Aliyah to the land of Israel. He has one son who he names after his grandfather. And that son is Joseph, or otherwise known in Israel as Yossi. And Yossi will become, and Ferry is a professor of chemistry. He taught also in the Budapest University, so 3rd generation of professors in that university. The statistician, the physician, the chemistry professor. Yossi Korashi, he's a child of immigrants, and therefore he wants to again out Sabra every Sabra, and how can he live with such a Hungarian terrible name in Israel? So he will change it to think creative. Korashi. Sound. Think about the sound. Korazim. He's my husband. He is my husband and a professor of social work who was the 4th generation from his family to lecture in the Budapest University. And we still go back occasionally. I go back to a Jewish school with which I'm involved. I'll talk to you about it in a minute. And Yossi goes back to work at the university in the faculty for social work. So these also are the Jews of Hungary. They could be Hasidic, they could be Orthodox like my side of the family, they could be Neolog like the synagogues that you will visit. Most of them will be, both the Dohany and the other one that you may want to visit will be Neolog. Okay. Immediately after World War I and following the communist revolution back in Russia, the World War will totally dismantle the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Kaiser dies towards the end of the war, and the League of Nations will divide up all this empire to Serbia and Croatia and Slovakia, and so on and so forth. Okay? So Hungary becomes much smaller, and if before you had all these nations, like the Croats and the Serbs and the Slovak, etc., suddenly all of them have their own countries, and we are Hungarians. And who are the other? If before we were all these nations, and now we are all Hungarians with one other, the Jews. Now it's the time for Hungary for the Hungarians, right? Okay. We have a communist revolution that will not last bloody, terrible, following the Russian example. It will not last very long, but it will last pretty long to create some atrocities. And at a gentleman called Bela Kuhn. Do you need a lot of imagination to figure out where Kuhn comes from? Kuhn is Cohen. The guy is Jewish. Revolution fails, they run away to Moscow, the leaders. Some will survive to come back after World War II. Not Kuhn. But the anger toward Jews is now threefold. Not that there was missing anti-Semitism before. And now comes a new of Hungary. He calls himself like the placeholder for the king until the emperors come back. He's the regent of Hungary, and he is called Horthy. Extreme fascist, extreme right-wing fascist party. And they will be issuing the first Jewish laws in Europe way before Germany. In the 20s already, there will be laws limiting the percentage of Jews in universities, in different trades, etc. They did not wait for Hitler. They had the original idea before. This is why you will find people like my father-in-law generation, who, because they could not be accepted to Hungarian universities, they went to study in the liberal, democratic, cultured country in Europe called Germany, of course, where else? And many of them would be graduate of German universities and will speak fluent German, like the Czech Jews, who spoke German very well. Okay? So Kuhn is out, in comes Horthy. Fast forward, 1944. Why 44? Because as soon as the powers that be start creating the two poles of World War II, allies, Brits, French, American, Russian, Canadians are not part of the British Empire, I was taught. No. Okay, Canadian. And on the other side, Germany, Mussolini's Italy, Japan, and Hungary. So therefore, because Hungary is on their side, they no need for them to invade Hungary. Therefore, they can enlist Jewish men as if it was a military service. They do not get arms, nor do they get uniform. They'll be slave laborers of the Hungarian army fighting alongside the Nazis. So oddly, in a perverted way, Jewish men from Hungary in the early years of the war will actually find themselves in the ranks fighting alongside Nazi Germany. Not fighting. They just had the unpleasant roles of clearing minefields, of building tracks, clearing airports, landing places and such. Starved to death, no systematic gas chamber killing or shooting killing, but starved, frozen, no medical treatment, overworked, etc. This is how they will die, thinking all along that their families are safe, which they were until 44. By 44, word gets to Hitler that Horthy, seeing how the war is working its way through, is trying to check whether he could jump to the other side, which will bring Hitler to invade Hungary in March of 1944. By that time, we are a full year after the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. There are hardly any Jews in Poland anymore. Anne Frank and family were found already in Holland and taken to Bergen-Belsen. This is the last living community in Europe. Therefore, Eichmann will move his offices from Vienna to Budapest. If you're absolutely interested and need to know, they will show you in Budapest in what hotel he was placed. Okay? He comes with there is a big history, whether it was anywhere between 150 and 250 of his goons to Hungary, which would never be enough to take care of the almost 1 million Jews of Hungary and Transylvania and so on. Which means that most of the work was done by Hungarian, by the Csendershég, it's a kind of a militia of a police, and then the Arrow Cross later on. So all that will start happening in 1944, and Jews of the countryside, the Nazis come in March 19th, 1944. It takes them a few weeks to get their act together, and from May 14th until July 8th, every single day, like a ring coming closer and closer to Budapest, okay? And day after day, cities from all over Hungary will have their Jews deported. In Hungary, you will not have stories about living in the ghetto and still teaching the kids or singing songs or creating soup kitchens. None of the above. Brick factory for a few days, train loads, and off to Auschwitz. That by this time, the end of 44, is functioning like to perfection. And it's 56 days of the deportation of almost 500,000 Jews from the countryside in Hungary, most of whom will, as the saying goes, in Hungary, nobody was killed in the Holocaust. The expression is they did not come back. As if, maybe tomorrow, they did not come back. If you speak Hungarian about the Holocaust, you do not use the expression they were killed. I had to teach myself to say they did not come back, because that's the way it's addressed when you speak in Hungarian. So what happened to your family? So my uncle and mother did not come back, and then my mother said, that's the way you'll hear the stories. Do you realize that every single Jew that you will meet in Hungary is a descendant of survivors? Because there was no Jewish immigration into Hungary after. And so everybody who is there, you have never yet, I think, met a Jewish community whose 100% members are descendant of Holocaust survivors. It's not like Canada with a smattering, or like Israel with a certain percentage. It's everybody who is there. It's weird to think about it the first time. I remember again how I needed to make myself aware of that. The two pictures tell a story. And since this is not a Holocaust lecture, I just want to give it the little respect that I have to. So these are the Jews of the city of Sopron, in which Jews have lived since the 14th century, as we have seen a few pictures ago, in which the synagogue stood next to City Hall. And then one day, in the summer of 44, when they came, they are directly from home sent to the train station. And while they are doing that, look at what is happening in their homes. The good neighbors will get these carts under the windows, go to the Jewish apartment and throw everything out from the windows and loot the apartments of their neighbors until yesterday. So normally when I teach about the Holocaust, I prefer not to show the horrible pictures. I think that we can learn a lot from pictures that do not aspire to do the graphics of death, but suggest the horror through different ways. Here's one of those nice numbers. Okay, so 1944. And by 1914, the head of the Gestapo turns into a museum. It's called the Terror Museum, and it's one of the landmarks of the history of Holocaust commemoration in Hungary. but in a way that is unacceptable to Jews. It presents the Holocaust in a way that the Jews do not like it. I will address myself to that in a minute, okay? But it's there at the center of the city. And the title, when it was created, was A Hungarian Tragedy. The Holocaust wasn't a Jewish tragedy. It becomes a Hungarian tragedy, Tragedia Hungarit. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I want for us now to look at a series of Holocaust memorials in Hungary, and by addressing just a word about each, to let you know how nuanced the language can be when a Jewish community lives in a country that has an anti-Semitic background and for which anti-Semitism had not disappeared. Not that it's rampant, but just see. So here is the most, I'm not going to give names. To me, one of the most touching memorials of the Holocaust, it's called the Weeping Willow. It was given to the community by Tony Curtis, a famous Hollywood figure who stems from a Hungarian Jewish family. And families can buy leaves and have the names of the beloved ones who did not come back engraved on the leaves. And once a year there is a ceremony. It's normally in the summer because most of the people who do that do not live in Hungary anymore. They are Americans or Israelis or Canadians, and therefore it's done. It's beautiful. It's in the yard of the Dohány synagogue, and you will always, if you actually miss English or Hebrew for a few days while in Budapest, just go by this monument and everybody will be speaking either English or Hebrew by this monument, because in the summer there is not one Jewish tourist who will come to Hungary and will not visit the Weeping Willow. This recent monument, and it's the most controversial one. It was created in 2014 when it was the 70th anniversary of the deportation of Hungarian Jews. And it was the way of the government to say to the Jewish community, we have not forgotten. The Jews hate this one more than they hate the terror house, about which I will speak in a moment. Why? Because what the monument suggests is the main figure is Angel Gabriel, the saint patron of Hungary, standing there for Hungary, being attacked by the Nazi eagle. Meaning, Rashi on this one, we were victims. Germans. The Jewish community tried to plead, to argue, to object, to protest. Nothing helped to prevent the building. So the reaction is, and please, if you can still include it, there is a group of not but a few hundred people who will keep like for their members to come every day and hold a silent protest. Nowadays it's a limud. They sit there and study and bring personal paraphernalia as memorials. And do not let tourists forget for a minute that this is not a Jewish monument. And we do not agree. And Hungary had not faced up to its own responsibility. And this is the newest of the monuments. It's at the center of town. It's like 2 minutes walk from the Váci Street, the shopping mall, etc., from the great pastry shops like the Gerbo, etc. It's by the American embassy. Please go. Please go for a few minutes if you have the time in an afternoon, and you will see the people who care, the Hungarians who care. And not all of them are Jewish, who come every day, a few dozens, to make sure that whatever tourists come there will know that not all Hungarians agree to that. Okay? This is the best known Hungarian monument. It's a Jewish one. It's on the shore of the Danube, near the parliament, and let us recognize the fact that it is near the parliament, so the Hungarian parliament had agreed and welcomed the creating of in the winter, December of 44, January of 45, when the Russians are already encircling the city, and the Germans who are still ruling cannot deport people anymore outside of Budapest. They will gather the Jews of Budapest who are still alive and tie them together because they are saving bullets, not push, shoot. Shoot one and let the other sink with them and suffocate and drown. And I don't know one single one of my friends, Hungarian people from Hungary, either in Israel or in Hungary, Jews, who do not have at least one family member who was thus treated in the winter of 44. And they were made to take off their shoes before because somebody wanted them. Okay? No, it's metal. It's metal, it's a sculpture. Yeah, it's sculpture. And the signs are in Hungarian and in Hebrew. Terrorház, why do we hate it? Because the government that created it after the fall of the communist regime had created two departments in the museum, and it deals with two forms of terror, the Nazi one and the communist one. And they sort of make an equation. Nah, we don't like that, right? We like the Holocaust to be separated and unique. We also have a particular personal issue because many Jews joined the Communist Party. After the Holocaust, what else would they do but join the party? That was the party of the Russians who liberated them. And they embraced communism until they become disillusioned. So for Jews to have the two equated with full recognition of communist horror, they still don't like the two things to be put one next to the other. So I remember when they first opened it in 2004, and Yossi and I, now you know that Yossi comes from the famous József Körösi, Yossi and I went to the museum, and then we mentioned it to some friends. Said, "What? You went to that museum? How dare you?" Well, we went. Sure. Yeah. The one on the left, this one, is the center image of the arrow cross, and this one is the Russian star. It is to commemorate the horror of the arrow cross and the horror of the Russians together. We don't like it. I still went to see it. I was interested. Okay? So I still went to see it. So, yes. Go to finish. I'm done. They say an hour and a half. Okay. So 600 victims, mainly from the countryside. Most survivors are from Budapest. This is why you have such a thriving life in Budapest. After the Holocaust, what is a Hungarian Jew to do? So quickly, let's go through the options. This already comes to you from my PhD dissertation, which is about the creation of one particular Jewish day school in Hungary called the Yavne Lauder School. I will use my question time to address that. So many a Jew come your way. Now, all the examples here are examples that exist in my family. Like in one family, we have all options. So we have relatives who went after the Holocaust to America and to Canada. We have relatives, my mom's cousin, who went to Australia, and my biological father who ended up in Argentina. So we put that. Then we have those who made Aliyah to Israel. All that we understand, right? But you are going to meet these that stayed in Hungary. No matter how mad my mom was with them. There was something in them that said and says to this day, the Holocaust was a period. It's 1 year out of a history of 100 years, hundreds of years of Jewish life in Hungary. And we are not giving the Nazis and the fascists a posthumous victory by leaving our homeland. And these are Hungarian citizens of the Mosaic faith, more or less, depending on their choices. And they are Hungarian, and they are proud of it, and they love their city, and they criticize their country like I criticize mine, and you occasionally criticize yours. Totally normal. So I know it's hard for us to accept, but I needed for you to see this picture. These are all legitimate choices made after the Holocaust by Jews and others. And then a quick story. In 1990, just at the end of World War I, the Jewish community who had lived that beautiful period of success, you remember, with the guy being ennobled and building the synagogues, etc. And already before the war, they start building an amazing Jewish high school that they call in the European languages gymnasium. It doesn't mean a gym, it means a high school. By the time it's finished, it's almost done because it's 1919, the Communist Revolution, and then Horthy, the right wing, and so on. It was as beautiful as they come, and it had a girls' wing and a boys' wing, and it was neolog in its affiliation, and it was one of the top high schools of Budapest at the time. But it needed to be closed after the Holocaust, and the remnant of the people who wanted to stay in Hungary and wanted Jewish education had to give up the building, which becomes a Hungarian public high school named after Radnóti, a Jewish poet who tried to escape by converting, didn't help, and was killed in the slave workers' brigades. They called their gymnasium that moves into the building of the rabbinical seminary, because there are so few students in the communist era. They do not dare call it Chana Senesh, because she was treated as a traitor to the nation. So Anne Frank is much safer. And they will call it Anne Frank. And there is a Jewish high school, minute, throughout the whole communist era. The other school in the building will become the Radnóti, Miklos Radnóti school, and people call it the meta-Jewish one, because Jews continue to go to the building. And Jewish teachers continue to want to teach at the Radnóti that used to be the Jewish. Lots of Jewish graduates, lots of Jewish faculty to this day. And if you go on the internet site of the school, it will have a special chapter about the Jewish history of the building. When the Jewish gymnasium would have celebrated its 70th birthday in 1989, just before the fall of the communist regime, people gather there and will say, no, before that, after the fall of the communist regime, the school gets bigger. It moves out of the building of the rabbinical seminary. They do not want to take back the Radnóti school, because as Jews, they do not want to harm that school that was created already, the public school. And they create the Scheiber Steindorf's Jewish Day School just outside in a suburb. And then those people who meet for the 70th anniversary start talking to each other just before the fall of the communist regime. And they'll say, we'll have amazing Jewish education in Hungary. Let's do it again. And they will create the Lauder Yavne school. That is the school for which I was called upon to join. Tried to do as much as I could to help them. Wrote my PhD dissertation about them, and still continue to work with them to this day. So I think I would like to quickly go to the end now, because we cannot do all that. I want you to see the building of the school. It's in the hills of Buda. It's an amazing, beautiful school. Ronald Lauder gave them $3 million to build it, and still gives them $300,000 every year for the running of the school. They have 700 students, K to 12. They have a music school, everything. They're just like any great Jewish day school in the world. They do archive and commemoration work. They do graduations like everybody else. They do Rosh Hashanah ceremonies. It's a regular Jewish school, and there's lots of other Jewish activity in Hungary. There's the Balint House, the Jewish Community Center. There is Hora Budapest for Rikudei Am, for Israeli dancing. There is a Jewish learning. There is the Sarvash Jewish summer camp. There are, of course, clubs for different ages. There is, what is this? Let me see. Sim Sholom, the Reform Congregation of Budapest, which was started by none other but one of my family members. The Spinoza coffee shop in the Jewish quarter, and much more of that. And I think I'll stop here. And you are in for a treat, and just enjoy as much of it as you can. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, I have time. It's just... I could come back for a longer period. Come to me, bevakasha. I teach at Pardes and I teach at Hartman. Pardes in Jerusalem, I teach a full semester every winter. The story about how mom came around. Okay. So I get involved with the school, and it's a love of labor, a labor of love, literally. And I can say now, looking back, the school was created in 1990. It's going to be 27 years old in February. This is when they celebrate the birthday of the school in February, because this is when they got the building, not when they started the school. And I'm really totally invested in it. I can also tell you, looking back, that from all the things that I've studied in my life, including my BA, my master's, and my PhD, the one piece of learning that had most affected my life was the fact that they taught me Hungarian in 46 and 7 and 8 and 9. Nothing that I've learned afterwards had affected my life as much as that piece of knowledge. Go figure. You never know. So I spent years, I was born in 46. By 90, I'm not a kid anymore. And I spent my life by saying, Yossi now is a second marriage, and he is from Hungarian descent, so he understands my shticks and my interest and all that. But I keep, and Yossi has a PhD from Columbia, and say, I'm too old for that. And then one day somebody visits from these Hungarian friends, and she's talking about her PhD, and it's clear that she has done something about the Hungarian Jewish community after the fall of the communist regime. And they look at her, and the woman is older than me. And the fall of the communist regime is like recent, so she must have done it older than me. So I tell her, I ask her, so may I ask you how old you are? And she cracks up laughing, and she's like 10 years older than me, and she just finished it. So Yossi and I, we take our major decisions. I did not forget the question. Yossi and I, we take our major decisions normally while swimming. We are both very much, ocean people. And as our kids described it, halfway between Tel Aviv and Cyprus, because we swim well into the deep. This is where we have our serious conversations. So I said, Yossi, you know what? I'm resigned. I'll do my PhD dissertation. And what shall I do it about? And in the water, swimming, he goes like, what are you asking me? Of course you know what you're going to write it about. It's about the school. I say, right, you're right. Like, how could I not think about it? And now he tells me, because he's Yossi, and he knows me, and he knows the world of academia. And he says, listen, Rachel, you are like, you're almost 50. You will never make an academic career in a university at your age. So if you're doing a PhD now, enjoy it. And the way to enjoy it is to find a good mentor with whom you will like to learn. It's like a Rebbe, you want a chavruta. So think about someone, write one page that will make it interesting enough for that person to do it with you, and that's it. And I did, and I am writing my PhD. And finishing it, the whole thing is an adventure. I love it dearly. I finish in 4 years, which is very rare in Israel. By the time I'm done, it's 2004. My mom was born in 24. She's 80. And she goes, so when shall I finally see that school of yours? The question was asked in 1990. She was 80. You don't wait. 3 weeks, we are in Budapest. Now, I'm not telling you that the school had put a red carpet from the airport, but almost. She gets like VIP treatment. She's Rachel's mother. Okay? Stop. Parentheses. Throughout my life, from childhood until the day she died, whenever something like really great in my mother's life happened, that could be Israel wins a war, or she has a grandchild born, or the opera is reopening in Tel Aviv. It doesn't matter. A great stuff. My mother's ultimate compliment for great stuff is, this is a victory over Hitler. Anything good happens, this is a victory over Hitler. Fine. We come to the school. She gets the VIP treatment. She's 80. She's tiring. So finally, they escort her back to Anna, head of school, my best friend, literally. And she collapses in Anna's office, not really, but like falls into the first chair. And they already know from me that she loves sparkling water. I don't take it from thin air. I love sparkling water. So it's right. She takes the glass, drinks a sip, and she said, you know what? This too is a victory over Hitler. I pick up the phone and called Rav Amital. I don't know if you remember me. Of course I remember. No, what did she say? She said, this too is she's right. This too is a victory over Hitler. That's the story. Okay. Oh, you're driving through the Tatra Mountains. Wow. Bunch of Bistritza. I was there. Okay, drive through Slovakia to Hungary and continue to Budapest. Let's focus introduction in Hungary on your tour educated. That would be Mike? Okay, I'll make sure he does the right business. Now he knows. We studied together. Arrive in Budapest, panoramic bus tour along Andrassy Avenue. The Terror Museum is along the Andrassy Avenue, so ask Mike to point it out to you. The communist and fascist thing together. You are on the tour? So you will see the two signs. Okay? In case they miss it, it's Andrassy 60. You'll remember? All right. A panoramic check into hotel, dinner. All right. So dinner on your own. The evening at leisure. Where are you at? What hotel? Okay, so here is an idea. Are you kosher? So there is this restaurant that is kosher style but not kosher. And it serves all the true Jewish Hungarian dishes. It's called Rosenstein's. It's like, as Hungarian restaurants go, it's pricey. Linen tablecloth, the works. A sommelier and this and that and what. But it's an experience. Like you really would eat the best of Hungarian Jewish cuisine. So that's worthwhile to do. Rosenstein's. Yeah, okay. Everybody will know. Everybody will know. If you're more into pastry, do not fall into the trap of going into that pastry shop on the square of the Vatziut, the Gerbo. It has a French name. It's a tourist trap. Don't go there. There is a street along the Danube called Pozsonyi. Pozsony is Bratislava in Hungarian. It's on the Danube. It's where the protected houses of Wallenberg used to stand. It's the second Jewish quarter. It's the Jews who will not live with all the traditional Jews by the synagogues lived. It's like your middle upper class Jews used to live there, and it's becoming that again. There is a garden coffee shop there called Duna Part, like it's on the shore of the Danube, okay? Part is like the shore, the quay of the Danube. And it has amazing pastry, and it will have your light dinner, because Rosh Hashanah is like heavy-duty dinner. But that place will have light salads, toasts, whatever, and amazing pastry, okay? And outdoors, if the weather is nice, so go there, and you are walking streets that for 150 years Jews lived there. But not your Payas and Streimel Jews. Your kind of Jews. Okay? Dunapart. Okay. I can send you all the URLs. Okay? I'll do it tonight, mail you all the URLs of all of them, because they all have English pages and whatever. Okay? So that for a free evening, or a walk along the Danube always works if you are not too far away. Also, if you are not afraid of public transportation, there is tram number 4 or 6 that stops on the Margaret Bridge, where Margaret Island is. 2 minutes walk, you're in the park, and there is like smaller than in Barcelona, but beautiful water fountains with music every half hour. And it's a Hungarian place to go. It's not a touristy place to go. And if it's warm, you will see that around the main fountain, there is like a canal with water, and the kids will take off their shoes and wet their feet in the water, and everybody does that. It's very local. It's not fancy. It's if I were there, if one of my grandchildren, this is what I would do in the evening. Okay? So, breakfast at hotel, explore the story of Jewish Budapest over the past 150 years, including a visit to the Dohan Street Synagogue, the largest in Europe, the Jewish Museum, housed in the site of Theodor Herzl, with the Community Holocaust Memorial, lunch on your own in the Jewish Quarter. So, okay, this museum, let me tell you about it. It's sort of an old-style museum, and it has one Holocaust room, and it's the kind of museum that Jews do to explain to non-Jews what Jews are. So it's all about your Pesach and Purim and Megillah and Chanukah and Brit and whatever. It's amazing to be in that building, but don't give it too much time. Spend more time outdoors in the yard, because there you'll have the weeping willow. There you have a beautiful memorial to righteous Gentiles who were active in Hungary at the time. The yard of the synagogue was a burial place during the ghetto time. You want to pay your respect by just being there silently. You want to watch the Dohani itself, because it's beautiful. Buy some lace if you want from the lady at the entrance. The museum, not a big deal. Okay, if you know what Chanukah and Purim are, so it wasn't meant for you. It's more to explain to the others what these people do. But and it has a Holocaust room. All right, Fisherman Bastion, nice. The Community Holocaust Memorial, lunch on your own in the Jewish Quarter. Spinoza, you're doing Spinoza. Jewish style, great atmosphere, okay? This is what I would do in the Jewish Quarter if I had to have lunch there, all right? Spinoza, yeah. Drive through the city and across the river, ascend Castle Hill, view Budapest from atop the Fisherman Bastion, the DAS special program with the young Jewish leaders from Budapest and the Jewish Community Center. You are meeting Fritzi, the director. Okay, she is there. I mean, she is tops. You don't need anything better than her. Return to hotel, special dinner cruise on the... You have to do that. I mean, how else would your family know that you were in Budapest if you don't send them a picture of you having a glass of white wine with some gypsy music on the Danube? You know, it's like going to Israel and not floating in the Dead Sea. You have to do it. There are no two ways about it. Do it. It's the top touristy thing to do, but after all, you're tourists, so enjoy it. Okay? Breakfast at hotel, check out of the hotel, depart Budapest to Slovakia. Guys, it's a taste of Budapest. It's like doing Israel in 2 days, okay? Enjoy. It's great. It's fine. I'm not going to put, like I would say, go to the Lauder School, go to see that other synagogue. You don't have time.
Two more quick questions.
Uh-huh.
Try to be quick. Oh, okay. Well, is this on? Yeah. Well, you're making it sound like we're going to Paris or something. It sounds
You are.
wonderful.
It's Paris of Central Europe.
Okay.
Better than Prague.
Because we thought we were going on a, Holocaust sort of memorial trip.
What did I start with? Please do not go on a Holocaust trip.
But I want to ask you this. In France and in Belgium and so many
European.
so many European countries, they're fearful. There's rampant anti-Semitism. So what about in Hungary?
How many minutes do I have?
Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay. To say that there is no anti-Semitism in Hungary would be stupid. As stupid as saying that there is no anti-Semitism in Canada. There is anti-Semitism. You are not what? Okay, all right. It's not in the government. There is a fascist racist party. It's called Jobbik, which is a plain word in Hungarian because the word right in Hungarian, just like in English, means that which is better or that which is right. So they are on the right side, but they are the better one. They are anti-Semitic. They are more anti-Roma. The Jews and the Roma are fighting their propaganda together. It was very ridiculous when a couple of years ago it was discovered that one of their top leaders has Jewish roots, and now he is with the Lubavitch Chevre and prays regularly in their synagogue. So that stuff happens in Europe. They exist. But let me tell you something that you will not like, but I will say it never. Yes, there is anti-Semitism. In Hungary, there always was. Jews who were saved in Hungary were saved by Hungarians as well. So not all Hungarians were, neither are all Hungarians anti-Semitic. Expressions of hatred toward groups of minorities exist in other countries, including Israel, more sometimes than we have in a country like Hungary. Now here's a funny phenomenon. Anti-Semitism in Belgium and France, ma'am, these days, is mainly Muslim anti-Semitism. Orban, a right of center, not extreme, Likud-like. A right of center prime minister had closed Hungary to the Muslim immigrants. Do you hate him or do you love him for that? If you figure that one out, then we'll talk about anti-Semitism in Hungary. Because Hungarian Jews do not have to contend with Muslims in Hungary. As Canadian Jews, are you in favor of a prime minister that will not let one single Syrian child stay in Hungary? Bevakasha. So go figure out. But Jews are not threatened by Muslims in Hungary. Yeah.
Hi. I was interested in the part where you had said that every Hungarian who lives in Budapest is a descendant of a Holocaust survivor.
You cannot wrap your head around that.
No, I can.
Okay.
I'm interested.
In Budapest and in other cities. But you will not go to other cities.
Right. So, well, I know my understanding is lots of people didn't go back to Poland because maybe they were taken.
Why did Jews come back to Hungary?
Well, I know that, yes, that's part of my question. And why do you think they came, besides the fact that they were connected to the land? Where in the historical
Okay.
timeline of how people were taken and when they were taken and where they were taken from, does it affect
You want
the
a
fact-
semester course, and I get it. But I will answer you, okay? So first of all, there is a very well-known Jewish Hungarian demograph and sociologist, Kovács András. He's on the board of the Lauder School. I know him as a parent in the school. We're friends. And he publishes in English as well. And there are amazingly interesting articles by him. If I have time tonight, I will look up the URL for that, and you'll have a full article to read on that shortly. Holocaust in Hungary is short. There's a relatively, as compared, larger number of survivors, because even if they are deported to Auschwitz, it's the last weeks of Auschwitz. So quite a few manage to survive and to come back. Mostly they come back to Hungary because they are Hungarians in their heart. And then you face, and now I'm quoting Kovács András, that sociologist to you, the waves of departure. So obviously, wave is the wave of the country's story is the first to go. They are the less assimilated or traditional, the closer to the roots. There's a larger number of Budapest survive, well connected to non-Jews, the ones who can acquire forged papers, like the Keroshes, not like my family. Okay? So you have a large of less affiliated Jews who remain alive. Second wave, after World War II, leave Hungary. If you're a Zionist, if you're a Jew who believes in the right of Jews to live freely in other country, this is the time to go. If you're a socialist, stay. If you believe, in the unity of all the workers of the world, on the other hand, trust those Arabs who wants to live there, and anyway, you have an ailing mom and she'll never be able to make it. So second, entrepreneur going to America, Canada kind of Jew, and the Zionist going to Eretz Israel. Those who remain, more Hungarian, more socialist, more local. Third wave, the 56 rebellion. If you believed at least that maybe you could survive it, now you know that it's finished. The Russian descended. Now it's time to run away. And you with people after the days of departure that are way else. Because that wanted other stuff in. There's the part they do not like the regime that much, they don't like the economy that much, they don't like their government that much, they want the big world, they want the high-tech world, and they'll be found in England, in Germany of all places that is open. I think very few in Israel, and quite a lot here in America, Canada, and the United States. Does that answer it partially at least?
Can I ask a quick follow-up to that? So can you tell me the demographic of the 700 families that send their kid to the Jewish school?
Yes. How do they call it here in North America? Jappies, Jewish American princesses? Oh, Japs, yeah. No, well, not such. Media, upper middle class, parliament members, business people, arts, musicians. Elite. It costs money. On top of Lauder's help. But it's an amazing school. It really is. Yeah.
Rachel, thank you.
You're so
Thank you
welcome.
so much. We wish we could take you with us, but we are so glad that you are here. Such a gift to our community, and we're so thrilled.